This time I'm going to show you how to make this really simple crossbody bag. I had in mind when I might walk in the dog, I like to wear something across my body to keep my phone and dog treats in. And this is a really simple bag to make. So it fastens over with a flap. I haven't put any pockets on the inside or anything. You could add those if you wanted to. There's no hardware, so it's a really easy, very quick, simple but very useful bag to make. And of course you can make it bigger. You could adjust the dimensions if you wanted to, so that it would hold more things like a water bottle, and if you did want to make it a little bit more secure, no reason why you couldn't put a magnetic snap under there as well. Now I've used a lightweight denim with a matching cotton lining, and I've used H630 as my stabilizer, so it's still nice and soft and easy to work with, but it does give it a little bit of shape and a little bit of form as well. To make a nice bag for a child as well, actually, wouldn't it? So I've put all of the materials, the ingredients if you like, in the description box underneath the video below there. So go and choose your fabrics and let's get sewing. Now I'm using a non-directional fabric because this is how the bag's going to be. It's going to be folded in half. So if it was a directional print, then it's going to be upside down on one side. If you do want to use a directional print, then you can simply join two pieces of fabric together and leave the seam across the bottom. So I've got my outer piece with my H630 already fused to the wrong side. This is the flap, which I thought might be fun with the stripe going in the opposite direction. Then my lining piece, my flap lining piece. This fabric is going to go straight across the front, and that will make the tab for the flap to sit behind to close the bag. And then this one is the strap. So with the strap and the tab pieces, I've already folded the long sides to the center, then in half again and press, and the same with the smaller one here. So then I'm simply going to sew along each side of those to complete the strap and the tab. So let's do that first of all, and then we can just put those to one side out of the way. So I can lengthen the stitch slightly. I'm going to go up to a 2.8 because it's only a top stitch, and just sew down each side. Let's put those to one side, and we'll take the flap pieces, and these are going to be sewn right sides together, but I'm going to curve the bottom corners of these first of all. So I'll need some kind of circular template, and something like a ribbon reel would work fine. That's about 3 or 4 inches across. And then I cut out the shape around both pieces. I'm just going to fold that in half to make sure it's symmetrical. Then we'll sew right sides together, just around the bottom. Don't sew over the top part. And I'm just using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or the edge of your sewing machine presser foot will be absolutely fine. Nice and smooth around the curves. Same on this side. And back down to the start. And then I'm just going to trim back to the seam just around the curved section. And then we can turn this the right side out. Press that if you wish at this point, and then top stitch all the way around the edge. Then we're going to take our outer piece to start with. Let's fold this in half, wrong sides together. And I'm going to draw a rectangle in the bottom here that measures 1¼ inches this way by 1 inch this way. And the same on the opposite side, so 1¼ by 1 inch. And then cut out the shape. And then do the same with the lining. Then take our outer piece and we're going to place my ruler 3 inches from the top and take the small strip of fabric, and that's going to go just underneath my 3 inch mark. So let's secure that with a couple of pins, just make sure that's still straight. And I'm just going to sew across the ends. And that's quite close to the edge, so within the seam allowance, just to hold those ends in place while we construct the rest of the bag. Right, that's a little bit too long, so I'm just going to trim this down. Now the flap is going to go on the opposite side of the bag. Whoops. So there's the front with the tab. The flap goes facing downwards here, and we're going to sit that centrally. You can measure that and mark it and position it perfectly. And again, sew straight across the top just within the seam allowance. Then we're going to take the bag and fold it in half, right sides together, and sew down each side. And then open out the corners so that the side seam sits on top of the base, and sew straight across. And same with the opposite side, so just open this out and sew across. And then let's turn this the right side out. Hey Bob. Push out the corners, make sure I've caught all of the fabric in the seams, sometimes you don't. And then take the long strap and sew this facing downwards over the side seams. So let's just do this one side at a time. So making sure that the strap isn't twisted, this goes all the way around to the opposite side, and sew that facing downwards again. There we go. So you can really see how the bag's starting to look now. Let's take the lining piece, and we're going to do just the same with this. So we'll sew down each side, but leave a turning up in one side so I can turn it the right side out. Now obviously if you are going to add any pockets to the inside, you need to be doing that before you put the bag together. So you could have added maybe a patch pocket or a little zip pocket on the inside if you wanted to, but do that before this stage. But for the purposes I'm using this for, just to keep my phone and dog treats, I don't really need the inside pockets. Let's open this out just like we did with the outside of the bag. And sew straight across. So then we'll take the outer bag, which is the right side out, and we're going to drop this inside the lining. So make sure the flap is facing downwards, and we're going to push the whole of the handle inside there as well, or the strap inside there I should say. And make sure the strap's facing down and line up the side seam. So it's a little bit bulky inside there, but we're just concentrating on what's going on around the top. So let's just take a pin and pin those side seams together. And I'm just going to sew all the way around the top. So let's use the free arm on my sewing machine this time. Don't often use that, and then slit this over the top. And sew all the way around. Obviously taking your pins out as you come to them. Just line up the edges of the fabric together. Again, I'm not too worried about which direction the seams are going to go in on something like this. Maybe in opposite directions. And it is quite bulky over the side seams where the handles are. Oh, sorry, where the strap is, or where the flap is at the back. So you may want to just take it a little bit slower depending on what kind of sewing machine you have. Or of course, if you have a denim needle, then use that on your sewing machine because it's a stronger needle and they're made to cope with thicker fabrics and layers of fabrics like these. So again, just lining up the edges together. And taking my time. I know it's a quick make, but it's not to be rushed. Just making sure that the handle or the strap is nice and flat. Then we come back to the beginning. Put that back on again now. And let's turn the whole thing through the turning up I left in the lining. And we'll sew the opening closed. So just pull each side of the turning up away from each other and you'll find the edges will just simply fold inwards and then sew over the opening. If you wanted that to be completely invisible, then sew it by hand with a ladder stitch. Right, and then we'll push the lining inside the bag. And let's just give that a quick press. So I'm kind of manoeuvring this so that the seam is sitting right on the top. And then we'll top stitch just to hold all of that in place. Whoops, there we go. So slightly longer stitch on your machine again. Pull the lining away so it's nice and flat. And sew all the way around. When you come to the strap, have it facing upwards and just keep again just rolling this so that the seam sits right on the top. Stop with your needle down if you do need to stop. And then we're almost finished. And again, quite bulky where the straps are, so you might have to just take it a bit slower. And back to the beginning. Then we just need to press it and we're done. So let's see if we've got any little loose threads that just seem to appear from nowhere. So snip those off to make it neat. There we go. And I'm just going to use a ham. These are quite nice to use for bags because it means that you can press the seam without flattening the bag, so you can keep its dimension, but just make the seams look nice and smart. And the same on this side. A little bit of steam on there just to make them nice and neat. I can get that right into the corner there as well and press the base seams. And that is another little bag finished. So again, it's a simple bag to make. No hardware, no D-rings, no sliders, no magnetic snaps. Although you can fit those if you want to. But I just thought we'd keep this one really simple, but I think we've created a really useful bag. Now obviously with the strap you can make that shorter or longer if you wanted to, and if you want to add hardware then of course put a slider on there, add some D-rings or whatever you've got basically. But I just wanted to show that you can make a very simple bag very quickly, very simply, and without lots of extra bits. So just basically using your fabric and your interfacing. So I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you make lots of them, give them to your friends and your family, and of course you can sell them, and if you wanted to make them different sizes, use that same technique, like them longer and thinner and wider and bigger, or whatever suits your needs when you're out and about. I shall see you again next time.